The question is, who is the starting quarterback? And Matt Mayoko, in an article that I'm reading just, like within the last half hour, who covers the 49ers for NBC Sports Bay Area, our good friend Matty Moe, says, I think there will be a lot of pissed off. He's quoting a 49er player here who was quoted as saying, I think there will be a lot of pissed off people in this locker room if Brock Purdy is not the starter next season. That's pretty interesting. Okay. I also heard, I guess that's basically what I'm hearing. So this is all part of Matt's podcast. I've yet to hear the podcast, but does that surprise you?
No. Players want to win. That's what they want to do. And they don't care really who the quarterback is. As much as people think, like players are really invested. First of all, it's not their decision, right? And as much as people think they're really invested and interested, ultimately they're most focused on doing their job. And they might have an opinion on other people's job, but ultimately their first focus is on doing their own job. Otherwise they're cut and they can't provide for their family. And I'm not surprised because, Brock Purdy has proven some things in the NFL that Trey Lance has not proven yet, right? First of all, he stayed healthy for a longer period of time. Unfortunately, Trey Lance got injured multiple times. I don't want to call him injury prone or anything like that, but he's also not proven he can stay healthy, right? And play the full season yet. It's just, he hasn't done it yet. And I believe he can. The other thing is, when you're comparing the two, right? Brock Purdy has proven the 49ers can win with him. They went 7-0 with him under center until he ultimately got injured on the sixth offensive play or third, whatever offensive play against Philadelphia. And so when you take all of that into account, Larry, you completely understand why the feeling is that right now. The way I see it too, Larry, is because you said a lot at the beginning and there's maybe some more stuff that you want to get into and we will get into it. But the way I see it is that if Trey Lance comes in OTAs, right, he's super sharp. He's fully recovered. His ankle is functioning the same way, and he's super sharp. He's super accurate. He's throwing the ball great. He's processing great. He's understanding everything. Then whatever this opinion, Larry, it could complete. It's not about Trey Lance or Brock Purdy or liking Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. It's about thinking which quarterback is going to give your team the best chance to win. Brock Purdy has proven that to these guys over Trey Lance yet. So the way I see it is it's not really a controversy unless Trey Lance comes into training camp or goes through this offseason, proves that, to his teammates and his coaches that he's better than Brock Purdy.
I agree. I mean, I always think the biggest, the most overstated thing there is the stated pecking order going into camp. Why? Because, right. I mean, there's going to be a competition. Now, sometimes there isn't a competition. Like last year, for example, you had Brock Purdy and you had Trey Lance, and there was no competition. Trey was the starter. Brock was a 7th round pick, just trying to make the roster. Mm-hmm. Jimmy was on a side field, and it really wasn't a competition. This summer, Brock and Trey sound like they'll both be on the field, and if they are, they'll be competing to see who's the starting quarterback. And how you play in practice and how and as Harbaugh used to say, iron sharpens iron. I think this is Niners win for the Niner fans, because the best of Joe Montana came out after Steve Young was there to compete with him. And right. I think the best of Brock Purdy will come out if Trey Lance is competing with him, and the other way around as well. The best of Trey Lance will come out with Brock Purdy there competing with him. So I think it's a good situation, to be completely honest, as they compete.
When you're talking about just the competition aspect,
yeah.
Right? Brock Purdy competed last offseason to make this team. So this is not new for him. He's been competing basically since he joined Iowa State, because even at Iowa State, when he was entrenched as the long-term starter, when you don't have, the ideal quote-unquote physical profile for a quarterback, you always feel like they're going to look to replace you with somebody bigger, somebody with a bigger arm. So he's proven that to Trey Lance has competed too his entire life. I don't want to discredit him, but it is a little bit different, right? Because the first 2 years he was guaranteed to be on this roster. He was guaranteed to start last year. He was, guaranteed to be on this roster and get a few snaps as a rookie because of his draft status. Whereas Purdy, even this last offseason, right? Like you said, bring out the best of him. We saw him already do so well in a camp-like competition because really him and Sudfeld were in a competition with Sudfeld, half given the job with this contract before the offseason even started, and he still won that.
It is interesting, though, that, people would have a player would have such a strong opinion that people would be pissed off if Brock's not the starter, but Brock earned it on the field. And, the one thing is, starters really aren't anointed. It's earned on the practice field or on the playing field. And I think Purdy's won them over. Now, Paul Perriman says best case scenario is Purdy comes back mid-season and Lance has played really well. I'm not sure maybe in under what, why is that the ideal? To me, the ideal is that, they both come back in training camp and they push each other to be great, and the 49ers have a phenomenal season with whomever wins that job. That's how I see it. But there is a feeling among the fans. I mean, I'll say this. If your goal is to trade Trey Lance, yeah, then I think that probably is the best case scenario, to have Trey play really well and then Brock come back, because Brock's established himself. Trey hasn't. If Trey plays well, he'll establish himself. He'll increase his trade value. Let me ask you this. How long do you predict Purdy and Lance go forward together competing for this quarterback position? Do you think this is just this is going to be the way it is going forward for multiple seasons? Do you think this is a prove it kind of a summer for one of them? Do you think that the Niners would trade either one of them? How do you think they're Niners?
I think it's
3 years from now, they're both on the Niners?
No. It's this season. This is the prove it season. It's either one of them. We'll find out this season, or maybe it's neither of them. But I think in the case that it's neither of them, Purdy will remain the backup because he'll be 2 years into a deal that puts him as a 7th-round pick. And even if he's not your future long-term starter, Larry, at the very least, he's already proven that he is one of 64 in the NFL, which means he's one of the 64 QBs that should have a job, right? No matter the price, because he's one of the 64 best, no matter what. I think that proves that. Lance's case, I think they would look to move him into his 4th year if he's not the guy. Just try and recoup any value you can get. Not that he hasn't proven he can be the backup. It's just contractually and financially, Purdy makes a lot more sense, and then you figure out whoever is going to be your starter. But to me, Larry, it's either or this year. You're going to find out. And I think even if it's Lance, I could envision the scenario where Purdy at least stays on and then goes somewhere else after he signs, whatever contract, especially if it's just Lance proves himself ultimately and they go with him. But if it's Purdy, I think Lance, if he doesn't prove himself to be the starter after this year, I don't think he'll be a 49er in 2024 and beyond.